Yeah, so had one of those little adventures. I was playing around with the build box this afternoon, and I had, as my brain does to me on occasion, I had a bunch of new ideas for games based off of games I played when I was younger. I've been thinking about how, with the discussion of trying to get certain things to work in BuildBox to do the zombie game. So trying to come up with ways to do some of those features and talking about how it might be easier to just see what kind of capabilities BuildBox has and build games around those capabilities. I uh, I actually decided to play around with that a little this afternoon. I got pretty frustrated with one. Like there's one. It's like a number swipe game, and you're on a essentially a tic tac toe board, and you can move your player circle from like the center square, and there are three rails that run horizontal and vertical along the framework of this thing. And along some of these bars that are invisible when you're not in edit mode, these numbered balls come through and ping you, and if they hit you, you lose the game. So you're supposed to be able to move your little white ball from the center square and get out of the way of oncoming balls. I can move left and right. I can move completely off the board, which makes no sense. And um, it refuses to move up and down with the key controllers that are supposed to allow it to move up and down. And there's no explanation about how the physics on that test piece works. And so it's a template that I'm supposed to be able to build certain games around. So I would take this template and I can reskin it any number of ways to do a certain number of things, tweak some of the mechanics, alter some of it some ways. But for some reason, the default format of this template has half of its features not working. And it drove me a little bit crazy. I'm like, why are you not working? So, when I spend about a 20 to 40 minutes trying to get a thing to do what it's supposed to do, as far as I can tell, that's what it's supposed to do because they don't have any directions or explanation of the control mechanisms. And it's supposed to be up, right, left, and down key. The buttons on my keyboard should be able to achieve each of those. They're not doing anything. Well, left and right work. And they'll let you leave the board, which doesn't make any sense. So I'm a little frustrated with that. I think I figured out how most of the others work. I haven't played around with the basketball one much, which I might actually explore more. And there's a ring wall one, which I'm going to try to figure out. I think somewhere in the range of both of those, there might be something I can do. But what I ended up doing earlier today was, like I said, I was thinking about the things I had said earlier yesterday or the day before, where I was talking about how I had made my game and then tried to see if I could make BuildBox make that happen. And it's possible. I'm sure I could make it happen. It's a lot more work, whereas BuildBox is really meant to do some very simple games. And so I actually, like, with that comment in the back of my head and the thought about this, there's just been percolating back there. Like, what were some of the games I used to play when I was younger that were very simple games that I could probably port over and do some like tweaks to in BuildBox? And I just like I had like ideas for 6 or 7 of these ideas that came into my head earlier today. I was like, I don't know if there's a way to do that in BuildBox, and so I ended up looking through the different templates of existing things in BuildBox because they have like a pinball game in there, which I feel like the pinball game would be a possible mechanism for sort of doing like a couple different types of games. One, I can kind of see it being useful for doing a mini golf, like a miniature golf game, and that would be kind of fun to do. And then the other thing is, I think some of the mechanics of that might be applicable to. You ever see some of those sort of like you drop an object and right when it's at the right spot, if you can hit it, you can see if you can get it to go a certain distance. Or you might be able to do something similar with like a target shooting or tossing, like carnival games almost. Could you toss a baseball at things to knock, like stacks of cups and knock them over? Like, can we do some of these things? Could we take the pinball game, which is going to have gravity, you're going to be looking side on, and the ball's going to be on the same plane the whole time? Can you twist that a little bit so that when you throw it, it has a ballistic arc? And if that's not the game to do it, would the basketball game be the one to do that? Can you twist the geometry of it so it moves in a different direction, fore and aft, rather than starboard and port? Um, so, like, I was looking through some of those games in BuildBox to see if there's potential for doing some of those things. So, simple carnival games, or like, I do feel like there are a couple types of games that I remember playing when I was younger that I don't think it's possible to do in BuildBox because they're I don't want to say they're turn based, but they're sort of well, one of them is turn based, um, but like it's not quite Minesweeper, but similar. There's a game I used to play where as you move around a field on a plane and you pick up an item, um, a enemy spawns nearby and starts moving towards you, and you have to keep ahead of it. Um, I played a game like that when I was younger that I really, really enjoyed and did really well at and got really into, and it was very addictive. And just reskinning the surface of it is the way, like the one I played, when you caught I guess, a coin, and the enemy popped up near you and started tracking towards you. There's an old game where it's Snake, where if you eat the fruit, a snake appears, and each time you eat a new fruit, the snake gets longer and bends around paths, and its tail can obstruct you from going through a certain area. The one I played more was one where each coin that you ate or fruit that you ate spawned a new separate fixed sized enemy. And so you could easily just keep playing until you had a swarm of essentially killer bees that would just try to get to you, and they're tracking you following your path. So they won't make a shortcut. If you start here and loop around here, they're not going to jump from here to there. They're going to have to follow the path you went on. But like to reskin something like that would be something like you're a fox, you've stolen a hen from the hen house, and they've released the hounds. Um, so each time you get a hen, a new hound appears or something like that. Something on that mindset. So, reskinning and redoing the artwork for it, or in some ways tweaking the mechanics so that um, it's a dogfight in a plane and climbing is harder than going down. Like you can go into a dive easier, pulling out of the dive is harder, climbing is harder. Horizontal movement relatively easy to do. So like these are ways I could take these old games that I used to play, tweak them, reskin them, and make a couple different varieties of games that play with those types of mechanics of old games. Like I'm a fan of a lot of those old games that um, there's one I used to play way back in high school where it was a third generation repeat of an arcade game, the one where you have the paddle, the ball, and the bricks up at top, and you knock out enough of the space in the bricks to get into that top space and get that ball rebounding around and eating up the bricks, and each brick you break is a point. Like, I got so addicted to doing that game. It's sort of like Tetris. I mean, it's very simple, but it's an addictive gameplay. And so I built up a small list this afternoon of a bunch of those types of games, and then I went through on BuildBox to see, like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 styles of those games. Now, there are some things that, um, like, there are a couple of them I haven't quite figured out whether or not if there's a way to port over. Some of them were like two-player games, so there's essentially hot potato that you could play. Now, could you play it against like a simple AI villain character in the game? Maybe, and then tweak aspects of it so that it's themed in a different way. Um, and then there are things like a game of Battleship. Like, you have to play against a relatively functional AI, a game that knows how to do, like, knows what motions it needs to do or things it needs to call out. And I don't know that there's a way to program something like that in BuildBox. But I was thinking about that and Candy Crush style games. And there's another one that I was playing with earlier that was so like a Candy Crush, Battleship. Um, oh, and maybe there's one there was one game that I knew that you move and multiple enemy opponents move in a turn-based system, and you're trying to evade them, and you can move through like a maze. And when they are trying to take the most direct route to you, um, you can set you can get to points where you can try to lead them towards you, and they'll have to pass through a barrier that destroys them. Or sometimes you can get them to collide with each other and destroy each other, and they leave a debris field that trips up other ships on their side. And so it's sort of like, what move makes the most sense for me to do now? Because it may wipe out 3 of my opponents, and the terrain changes sort of randomly each level that you go to. And so, like, I loved that game too. I don't think there's an easy way to do that in BuildBox, but I might be able to pull it off in RPG Maker of all things. Because it's essentially, well, maybe. I'll have to look. Because, like, it is essentially, they do have a turn-based combat system in that, but they also have a mapping system. I don't know. Might be hard. That one I want to figure out a way to do, and if I can't figure out how to do that in BuildBox or RPG Maker, or RPG Maker's IG Maker, which was the indie game maker, which is their version of BuildBox essentially. If I can't do it in any of those systems, that may have to be something I play around with building playable apps in Python from scratch, which is going to be a boatload of hard work. There were a couple dice games I used to play when I was younger too. We did some interesting things during study halls in my high school. And card games. We used to play a game called Pain for Souls. We weren't allowed to bet money, so we bet each other's souls. I still think I have an accumulation of those somehow. But we played dice games, and some of those, like, they don't translate well to like a BuildBox or an RPG Maker style game. So I may look around to see if there are other simple game generation engines that I might be able to use, because otherwise I'll have to see if I can build them from scratch in like a Python. Well, actually, I might be able to build them in Scratch. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I haven't tried to do much with Scratch. Yeah. So like I've been playing around with. I mean, it's sort of. It reminds me of a few years ago when I was writing for National Novel Writing Month. Um, it's a every November, start of November to the end of November, people all over the world get together on a forum, and every day they support each other and trying to write 50,000 words by the end of the month, which it's a haul. It's a lot of hard work. But my first year doing that, I came up with this very intricate and complicated storyline, and it was working out as a great story. It was just that by about 9 days before the end of the month, um, I realized if I finished at the rate I was going, I'd get 30,000, not 50,000. So at the end of the month, I'm like I think I was 5 days out. I said, well, I'll just start a side story, and now I'll combine the word counts for the rest of the month there. Yeah. So I writing for National Novel Writing Month my first year and doing it, I wrote like 25,000 words, and I realized like 5 days left in the month, I wasn't going to be able to make it to 50,000 because the story would only let me write 1,000 words a day before like I couldn't force it to be a cohesive story anymore. And it was working really well at the 1,000 words a day pace. But I'm like, all right, so I'll just start a side story. And the side story would just be a goofy, fun story to write. And the word count I get for that, on top of the word count I continue to get, like, I'll write my main story. And when I hit my 1,000 word limit, which is usually about an hour or hour and a half time frame, um, I'll just jump over to my fun story and just write out 4,000 words that don't matter. And uh, continue a goofy story. And the thing that happened was at the end of the month, I hit 50,000 words in my side story alone. I still only had about 25,000 on my main story. So like that last 5 days of like I really wrote 10,000 words a day in a story. That the story worked fairly well. It's definitely a first draft. It totally needs to be redrafted. But um, I feel like I'm doing something similar with the games that I'm working on right now. Like, I'm going to continue to work on my zombie game, but I feel like I could pull it like a weekend or a day game build if I just had like 2 days with nothing else going on in my life, which is not going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But I feel like just 2 days uninterrupted. Maybe in the next week and a half, I'll be able to get that amount of time. But with 2 days uninterrupted time, I feel like I could build one of these simple games that I've been playing with. Yeah, Battleship was it was one of those games. I think I did a review of a game, a board game, like a year and a half ago. It was like a three-dimensional battleship game. It was like submarines with depth charges, and I think there was the top layer with your battleships, and then there were three layers where you could hide your submarines on. And yeah, I think I did a review for that one. I hope I posted it. I know before my last computer died, and I ended up losing my place to record and access to internet for several months. Um, so I may have recorded and not posted. There's a fair number of files I have like that on my old computer which died, so I have to dig them up. But I know I posted some before that happened. But I feel like translating some board games over to playable apps that people can play on their phone or on the internet or stuff like that, and reskin those into a different theme, like taking some simple like chess style game. Well, maybe not so much chess, but like backgammon or something like that, and giving them a reskin. The thing about it is, I don't think BuildBox is really good for turn-based games. But I wonder if I could tweak it so that it could do that. Because I could maybe, man, that would be a heck of a trick. I might be able to take the game field, the one screen that you're on, and that's one of the things I find interesting is most of the games that you can build or work on with BuildBox are scrolling in one direction or the other, moving across a larger scene. Um, but a lot of the old school games that I remember playing, and some game mechanics that you don't see a lot of, like Candy Crush, is one of those types of games that um, you don't need a three screens long a three screens long field to play in because you don't have a use for all those other screen space. So it all takes place on a still screen, like games like Whack a Mole, games like Asteroids and uh, Pong, and the blocks at the top with the paddle that bounces the ball up that I played so much of. Like I played games like those all the time, and they're fixed screen games. And honestly, there's no reason you can't play that type of game on your phone. And there's no reason I can't bring those types of games back with a reskin and a tweak to the themes. Like the paddle game with the bricks at the top, instead of bricks, can you make them uh, you know could you make what was it, Doctor Strange from the recent Marvel movies? You could do a wizard at the bottom, and the bricks at the top are going to be um, Cthulhu tentacles breaking through from another dimension, and they're all in that one space, and you have to ping them all out with throwing sorcery balls or whatever. I don't know. It's that's just off the top of my head right now. There are ways to redo that so it is the game that you played mechanically, but visually and theme wise changes it completely. And like I could do some of those things. Turn-based games, like the one I was talking about with the spaceship that you move, or was it a pirate ship? I don't even remember anymore. But you move it to like a different tile, and enemies all on the board see the move you made and know where you are now, so they'll move in line to get closer to you, and they'll try to take the straightest route, even if it means colliding with a reef, I think, or something like that, like a coral reef, and so it sinks their ship when they do that, and then they become an obstruction for any other ships trying to get through that particular shoal or whatever. Um, so, like, I could maybe do that if I built a single play area and set all the villains on that screen to only move like as I think I would have to lay a grid out of squares that all villains activate to move one square every time the main character moves and activates on square one. You move one square in any one direction. When you move to that square, it activates a scenario in which other pieces move one square. And so, like, I think there might be a way to do that with BuildBox. Again, it's a lot of extra steps to make that work because it's not built to do turn-based. But I feel like if I could make it do it, I mean, I loved those games when I was a kid. I loved those. Like, I can't tell you the hours. Like, I think we were talking the other day about like, how many quarters I must have put into one of those arcade games. Like, if I had those quarters today, if I had not spent those quarters on an arcade game, I just invested it in a well, if I invested it in Bitcoin, it would be amazing right now. But if I invested it in an interest generating account of like 1.5% interest generated, I would easily have enough for a whole new car. You know, and it's just like I play and like that's when it cost me money to play those games. Like those types of games now, you put them on somebody's phone as a free phone game, and with an ad banner at the bottom of it, you can get paid. I think like 1 to 5 cents for each ad that you have in your game. And so when you finish a level, it refreshes it to a new level, and a new ad goes up. Somebody playing through 20 levels of this game gets 20 ads, and like if they do this 3 times a week on their lunch breaks at work, like that's a marketable a way to do it that doesn't cost the players money, but is a potential revenue stream for game developers. So I'm like, that might be worth giving a go. I keep going back to, I might have mentioned this during my art week, was I talk with a lot of artists at conventions and stuff. And one of the things that uh, some of the artists have said in the past is I went to one of their tables and they had all these heart-shaped napkin rings and like these huge pieces of masterpiece works, and the masterpiece work is like 3 to 4 grand, and or it's probably more than that. I think it probably somewhere between the 3 to 8 grand time at the price range, but the napkin rings are like $3 to $5. And I went, wow, that's a huge disparity in price. And he said, yeah, but at least about 20% of the people who come through here will buy a napkin ring. I might sell one of these larger works in a year. The napkin rings pay for me to be able to work on the masterworks. And so being able to build some Candy Crush, simple, playable, goofy games that cost nobody anything to play, but could potentially generate an income stream from the ads in it. That's something that may make it possible for me to generate an income stream in a way that benefits everybody involved. Now, I mean, I still feel like having ads on anything I make. That's why I don't do ads on my channels yet. I may institute a policy later on that I'll run ads at the beginning of any video that's more than 6 months old, so that if anybody wants to go back and watch an older video, they don't have to wade through the ads on it. If that's possible on YouTube, I may do that. But yeah, for my ideas of games, I, I still have that little bit of me that feels like I don't want to spam people with ads, and you don't want to spam them, but I feel like putting any ads on it is just kind of like, ugh, all right, fine, I'll deal with it being there, and I don't want to do that. But making it my heart-shaped napkin rings, I think that's not a bad way to do it. I mean, it certainly means that I don't have to ask the people who are playing the games that I want to create to pay me for them. I want them to be able to enjoy them and not be like, I don't know if I can afford to fork over the 5, 10, $20 for, depending on how complicated or big the game I make is. You know, I want you to be able to play it no matter what. And I'd love to do it shareware too. Um, is there a way to make it so that you can buy an ad? Actually, I think I looked through BuildBox features, and they do have features that let you add ads to games. And one of the things they said is you can also make a store where people can buy features for the game. And one of the features you can buy for some games that they suggested many people use is a ad-free version of the game. I still feel like that's ransoming though. I don't know. I like the idea of having a game that doesn't cost a player anything, and if they want to support me making games but they can't afford to buy all 15 of the games that I'll make in a year or so, then they can support me by allowing the ads to run and generating a little something from that. Like, I mean, I think it depends on how the ads work too. But yeah, BuildBox does have a feature for adding in-app purchases and adding advertising to your games. And I do believe they have a mechanism for formatting it to play on all sorts of mobile devices. And I don't know if the BuildBox program itself makes it possible to upload to iTunes and other app purchase sites, but I think you can manually sign up to sell things through those sites and do it yourself. So that's not like they might have that feature, but even if they don't, it's not like I couldn't do that if I wanted to. So like those are some of the different things I've been playing around and trying to learn a little bit more about BuildBox. I mean, it's one of those things I probably should have done before I started this challenge, is learn what the capabilities of BuildBox are. But I mean, it has some capabilities. I don't know how those capabilities compare to the RPG Maker IG Maker, which is their version of BuildBox, I guess. I don't know what capabilities they have for in-app purchases and advertising in a game. Not that I can't just figure out a way to do it as shareware anyway. Yeah, so I've been playing with some of those, but I'm looking at like I have a big collection of board games, and if I can figure out how to manage the simple AIs, I could maybe do something like a battleship game, but instead of doing boats, I could do it as uh, maybe like a sector of space, and you have planets as colonies instead of ships. And like one solar system has uh, a um, a colony on the moons, several colonies on the moons around a gas giant would be your battleship, and your PT boat would be like a small Mars-sized planet in a different system. And instead of bombing them, what you're doing is conquering somebody else's territories. So, like, I could see doing a game like that. I can just figure out what software would be able to achieve that. I'm not sure how easy that would be to do in BuildBox. Um, like, you would do a single screen for your map, and you could have a small chart off to the side of uncharted territories or enemy territories, and you're trying to conquer or liberate their territories. And you have to kind of test them out. And I there's I could potentially do that, but like the AI has to. I don't know if there's a way to do multiplayer games in BuildBox. Maybe you can do player versus player. I somehow highly doubt it. But so I like, but even if I can't, like, I'd like to be able to do a single player function. And if I were going to do the single player version of that, conquering territories, your AI has to conquer you back to a certain degree. It has to be able to test out. Like, what random sequence of testing do I just do I build a massive archive of all the different variable paths it could choose in the course of a game and have it just follow one set of guesses? Like, oh, well, it's just going to use the guesses like A1, D4, E9, and then uh, do a whole sequence until it would eventually cover the entire board. Um, I could build a file like that for each of the potential sequences of. That's a big file. That's a big. I might just want to settle on like top 20 because that's enough variance that you're unlikely to repeat a sequence in enough time. Like if you played 20 games in a day, maybe you would notice, oh, he's doing like he did the last time. But I mean, if you do 1 to 3 games a day for, I don't know, if I did 24, I could do like 8 subsequent days. Like the 8th day, you're not going to remember what the sequence was on the first day. And if it chooses the one it uses, the template it uses randomly from its list, you might get a repeat within the same day. So I mean, it's like I got to figure some of these things out. Again, it's turn based. I don't know how easy it would be to pull off a turn based game in BuildBox. And I was thinking it might be easier to do something like that in RPG Maker. But RPG Maker, like even when you're walking around the map, it's not turn based. Only the combat is turn based in RPG Maker. So maybe if I used the main game in RPG Maker to do a like cutscene stuff, like animated scenes, and then use the combat mode, could I pull off a battleship in RPG Maker? I don't know. Be interesting to try. So yeah, there's some things I could do maybe, and like that turn-based thing is going to be a hard one to figure out because I do think there's a space for them. Like Candy Crush is sort of a turn-based thing. Like it's do something and an event happens and then you respond to and strategize your next move as you do that kind of stuff. I mean, they like to set it on a timer so that you don't. I haven't played Candy Crush. I just I know the type of game it is. Um, there were a lot of those types of games when I was younger. Um, Oftentimes, some of the simpler versions of those kinds of things didn't have the rapid timer on the side. Um, but I think I think there are ways to maybe make that happen. I'll have to tweak around with it. Um, this coming week, this is sort of like a finishing up projects week and update on things kind of week. And then I'm in the process of prepping for my trip to Honolulu, and it's a mad scramble to get everything figured out before I do that, and make sure I take care of things I need to do here first. I just really did that, didn't I? Uh, there are a couple. There's a contest on Instructables that I actually want to enter. Um, and Instructables does these contests, and they have some really good prize packages in these contests. Like the one that's ending on the 4th of March, like the day I leave, is like a sweets, make a Instructable on how to make a recipe of something. And I'm like, oh, I can totally do that. Which one of my infinite number of interesting and unique recipes do I do now? But so I got to figure out. And then, like, the other thing is, I can't eat this stuff. It's going to be sitting around here for a week while I'm gone. Like, or I need to find a friend or a family member I can give these to. Because I'm not, I can't eat them before I go. And if I eat them a few days before I go, they may upset my system enough that I won't be able to go. So I can't eat it either. So I have to make them, find somebody who will eat them once I've made them, do the instructional on Instructables, and then I can leave. But the prize for winning this thing on Instructables is a KitchenAid stand mixer. Like, I don't have a KitchenAid stand mixer, and I've had to make recipes like meringues the really, really, really hard way. Like, a stand mixer would enable me to do things. Like, I used to make marshmallows from scratch when I had access to a decent mixer. Um, and when you can do that, you can make unique and interesting marshmallows. Like, instead of using corn syrup and sugar mixtures, you can cook down like fruit juice or apple cider into a concentrate syrup that then you can whip into a marshmallow and then dust with apple pie spices and make like a mulled cider or an apple pie flavored marshmallow. And then when you have the capability of doing that, mixing those in to Rice Krispie treats, you can make what I call a Spice Krispie treat. And they're really, really good. But I don't have the equipment to do a lot of those more complicated steps. And they have a contest on Instructables where I can win the equipment to do that. So I kind of want to enter that. And they have one coming up for, I think, April, which I think is their laser cutter. And I know I have access to one at the Makerspace, but it'd be kind of cool to have my own. Because there are certain things I can't do with the one at the Makerspace. Um, the joys of being a mad scientist. And then they have a contest for paper creations, and the prize for that one is um, a, a really good quality digital camera and a, one of those Cricut paper cutters that can be used for vinyl cutting too, I think. And so, like, I could get a good quality camera and a vinyl cutter and a paper cutter out of winning that contest if I pull off a cool enough project made out of paper. And so, like, I definitely want to do those. The paper one and the laser cutter, I think, are April 1st or April 4th or something like that. But the sweets one is for March 4th, and I got to see if I can get that one taken care of before I leave, because that stand mixer, like, the first prize is the stand mixer. The second prize is, and I think there are multiple of those, is an ice cream maker, which, again, like, I don't particularly need it right now, but I know I can guarantee you that I could make some really interesting ice creams. I'm kind of curious to experiment with, like, if that's what I end up winning, it would make it easier to do experiments with making dairy-free ice creams. So I know how to make like almond milk, cashew milk, macadamia milk. I can make probably a pumpkin seed milk. I can make coconut milk. And taking those things and using them to make ice cream with them might be interesting to try. And the bonus out of that is when you make them, you get the nut milks and seed milks that you can make, and you also get nut flours that you get left over. So I can use the nut flours in other recipes. Like I can make I've made an almond macaroon using almond flour, and I tweaked that recipe taking pistachios, turning them into a pistachio flour, and then making pistachio macaroons. Now, could I make a pistachio milk? And if so, can I turn that into like a pistachio frozen yogurt? I don't know. Could I make a pistachio sour cream? I don't know. These are things I want to play with, and yeah, I could probably try to make the ice creams of different kinds without the ice cream maker. That's fine. Um, the stand mixer is something that enables me to do things that I can't currently do. I could probably see if I could find a cheap handheld mixer. I think they've got like the handheld blender ones for like 25 bucks. But like if I have the chance of winning a professional KitchenAid mixer, I'm gonna see if I can win it. But I gotta do that this week, and I still gotta see if I can arrange a couple of places to stay because all the places I've been trying to contact and get a hold of for Honolulu, I keep getting like blown off or nobody's responding, and it's a little frustrating. Um, but I need to organize that last bit. I got to find the bus to the airport, and I have to find a way to get to the bus terminal to get to the bus to the airport. But once I've got that squared away, I should be good for my trip. I got to figure out my scheduling of how I'm going to do videos when I'm in Honolulu, and once I'm there, I'll try to regularly update. But yeah, once I'm there, and you know, many of the things that need to be done before that. That's all where all the work end of that is. I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do for my baggage. Like I know I want to bring this laptop with me. I need to bring the power cord, probably two different cameras with me. I've got the ones I've got from the thrift store, and the SD cards for those for the interviews I need to record. Backup batteries for the cameras, and the charger for it. And that should be everything I absolutely need to do my projects over there. I need clothing. I need a means of currency, some ID, and then it's just kind of winging it from there, right? Like I can't remember. Like the last time I did any traveling was this last year, and I did it in my car. Like if I couldn't find a place to stay or I needed to go to the store, like I just drove in my car or I slept in my car. That's easy to do. I'm I'm going to be nearly the other side of the world from my car. This is a hard travel for me. I've not flown in, oh God, not somewhere between 20 and 30 years. I was very, very young on my last plane flight. It has drastically changed since then. I don't know. Like, I don't know what it's going to be like to fly now, and I don't know what I need for this kind of trip because it's been so long since I've been on any kind of trip other than driving in my car. I really hope I don't screw anything up and get myself into trouble. Um, Alrighty, yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, but I'll get it figured out. And then I want to finish up some of the projects from these past 2 months that, uh, like, get a place to post some of the things I've made, and see if I may have to go down to my storage. I might have a backpack I can use to carry my. I think I want everything I bring with me to be carry-on, so I have it with me at all times. And then, like when I'm down there getting that bag to carry my stuff with and my summer clothes, because like right now it's probably all of 22 degrees outside here Fahrenheit, um, but it's 68 in Honolulu, and it's going to be in the 80s, low 80s while I'm there. The winter clothes are not what I want to be wearing. So I gotta get some summer clothes, the bag to carry my stuff in, including my camera, tripod, and SD cards and chargers and all that stuff, and my laptop. And then I'll pick up the scanner, see if I can scan some of the artworks I made during this past week. We did the mukbangs. I need to put the board game up. So I may have to start a web page for that. I don't think I have a web page for this other than my Facebook group. And then board game, oh, animation, just not going to be done by the time won't even be done by the time I get back from Honolulu. And the book won't be second drafted by then either. But I can maybe do excerpts and like a preview or something like that for the book before I go, maybe. But like the board game at least should be able to go up. The images from the artwork should be able to go up, like better ones, not like the screen captures of it on the easel. And then like I want to have something that I can do for a game that I can post up. It won't be zombie game. I might be able to do some screen capture video of the zombie game rough out. But yeah, that's sort of all I gotta try to do this week. And then at the end of the week, next Sunday, it's the start of travel week, and I won't get back until the 12th, which will be my next movie night. Like, no, well, it'll be one of my movie nights. I have a movie night for Thor Ragnarok coming up Tuesday night here, Views Day. And then the next week will be the day I get back. Or no, the next week will be. Yeah, what week are we in? I can't even think straight anymore. Um, uh, this Tuesday in 2 days is like a day and a half. It's not 2 days. Is Thor Ragnarok. And yeah, then my next one will be when I'm in Honolulu, and then the next one after that, like literally the night I arrive in Honolulu, is my next movie, and then the next one after that is the very night that I arrive back. And I think what I'm doing, so Ragnarok's next, like Tuesday, and then the 5th will be, I believe, Ant-Man and Wasp, and then possibly on the 12th, I might do like a Spider-Man Homecoming, and then I got to figure out whether or not I'm going to do a Marvel TV series. Oh, speaking of Views days, originally what I had planned to do was have a blog that ran alongside this channel. I think I got a Tumblr and never did anything with it. But I was looking into uh, what kind of things you can do on Tumblr. They have different categories of content you can make for Tumblr. And so I was actually looking at, for doing Tumblr, this is where Views Day came from. I was looking for each day of the week, is there a different type of content that I could make? And so, like, because I do different types of content on my channel here, where I do a food-based thing, um, it it ended up being Song Day for Sunday, Munch Day for Monday, Views Day for Tuesday, Friends Day. So that was for like collaborations and call outs for new friends or channels or connections I made. And then uh, Thoughts Day for Thursday was a, basically a rambling series, sort of like I'm doing right now. And uh, Friday was, I think I did Phrase Day because I couldn't think of anything else that had the alliteration factor for it. So it was going to be quotes and um, things like that. And then Saturday was Chatter Day, so it was going to be like an open discussion, um, like Q&As or talking with people about projects they're working on or advice or stories from my life kind of thing. More of a chat back and forth. Whereas Friends Day was more of a collaboration and or um, highlighting new favorites, like a new favorite YouTube channel or a new favorite web comic, like the one I just found yesterday. Still love that thing so much. That was an amazing find, and I'd love to be able to do like shout outs to that stuff and you know that sort of thing. But yeah, so I was thinking of doing that for a blog on what was that site called? I can't remember now. Got distracted. Um, Not Tinder. Is that what I called it before? That's not what I was thinking of doing. Oh, what is that called? I can't remember that blog site now. I'll have to look it up, see what I was using. But I could do it as video content, daily video content. And I could do travel instead of Thoughts Day, which was Thursday. I'll have to think about it. But yeah, I might revamp some of those ideas and reuse them. Just maybe change one of them out for gaming. I don't know that I'd be a great live gamer. Oh, speaking of some of that stuff is, um, been doing some research about what I can do with YouTube Live, and it looks like you can upload potentially um, live video to YouTube Live from OBS. And OBS, I don't know how well it'll work on this computer yet, so I have to give that some experimentation. But if I can use OBS, I've dabbled with it enough in the past, trying to figure out whether or not it was something I could use. My other computer wasn't up to handling it. This one has a better processor and more RAM, so it might be able to do better with it. If I can get this to use OBS, it means I can start including picture in picture and green screening and overlaying effects on YouTube Live. So I may very well, in the next month and a half, be able to really upgrade what I'm doing with this live stuff. And that'd be really cool. I would really love to be able to do that. Heck, if it goes well enough, I might be able to post my regular content this way. Just taking OBS, doing my intros, my reviews, and my creative prompts for each thing that I do using OBS and YouTube Live, and that would be amazing. It would streamline my creative process so much. For this channel, the other channel, it's not easy to do some of the stuff that I'm doing stationary for the other channel. But yeah, so I may be able to figure some of that out in the next couple of weeks and then really start planning some of that out, because I have some interesting ideas of what it's going to look like when I can really upgrade what I'm doing. And part of that, part of my flight out to Honolulu, it's going to be 12 hours on a plane over 2 days. I'm going to, over 24 hours. I'm going to probably bring some like a sketch tablet, so I can rough out some design ideas for templates and layouts of OBS themes that could really, like, I want to be able to sit here off to the side here, get some good audio coming in, frame it well, have a good resolution picture, and be able to bring up have a ticker at the bottom that talks about the type of content work, like a logo for the type of content each week, or each day that I do new content, the name of the product or item that I'm reviewing, and then the reviewing score, and a list of the prompts as I bring them up. And between each one, like I used to do on this channel for recorded and edited ones, I would do a idea number one, and it would cut away and give prompt one or something like that. I can do not really cuts, but scene breaks in live by doing an animation that pops up, blocks the screen, and comes back for each one. And that's the possibilities that this opens up. I'm very excited about. Like, I could really step this channel up a lot in the next couple months if I can get this all to work right. That's a big if sometimes. Alrighty, we're at an hour. I'm chewing up the day. Well, it's not daylight anymore, but I'm chewing up the time. I appreciate you joining me, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. All right.